the choice to act, the choice to be who we want to be is completely ours. And no one can take that choice away.
Fire, earth, wind, water. This is the Elemental Educator. And now your host, Tyler Comeau.
Hello and welcome to the Elemental Educator Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, and today we have a special guest that elevates educational and leadership expectations. Utkarsh is a learning consultant, executive coach, facilitator, content creator in Melbourne, Australia. So yes, you've heard it first. He is from the future. Over his 16-year career from being a physiotherapist and that to a good one, to filming and editing 400 hours of content for a Columbia Business School professor, to scaling a startup and leading sales, to now helping individuals and teams outperform themselves. He has learned to make fear his ally in living a courageous life. He has a passion for understanding human behavior and using his diverse experience in building programs for organizations across the globe. He lives by his 5 core values, which I will let him unpack a bit later as we talk about his earth. When not helping others get better, he enjoys working on himself through reading, meditation, exercise, and raising 2 boys with his wife in Melbourne, Australia. One quote that he lives by: "Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever," by Mahatma Gandhi. Welcome to the Elemental Educator Podcast, Utkarsh. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks so much, Tyler. Yes, truly a joy to be here with you. And I come from the future, and I sometimes drop in the numbers for the big lottery that's going to happen, right? The $1 million lottery. So people should really hang in here, and I'll share the numbers with them as to what's going to win
Perfect.
today.
Yeah, we'll disperse them throughout the episode, so stay tuned. Listen close.
Sounds
You
good.
want to listen to the episode in its entirety. There we go. So I want to dive right in and just start with unpacking. Utkarsh, how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, it's been quite a long journey, and as you were doing that intro, I was like thinking, I've done quite a few things in life, but they've all been driven, Tyler, by this innate need to feel joy. Because I truly believe that life's too short, actually, because you never know when we were to kind of just pass out from this planet, and I want to do that with a lot of joy in my heart, and that's led me to do all of these things that I've been able to do over the years. Now, some might feel like, Utkarsh, what the hell is wrong with you, man? Because you've done everything. You're like a complete generalist, jack of all trades, master of none. And that's okay, because that's your definition of success. But my definition of success is to really feel that joy on a day-to-day basis and make sure that the work that I'm doing today, that really impacts people around me and beyond. And that's what's kind of pursued me on the path of being a physiotherapist, and that to a good one, to getting into filming and editing, to sales and operations, to then in the middle of the pandemic, deciding to quit my job and start my company called Ignited Neurons.
I love that. And what you're saying aligns so closely with the elements that we're going to be unpacking here. What a journey. And even just reading it myself, you're absolutely right. It's not the traditional way that people would experience a career to unfold, but what you're rooted in and is what we're going to get to here. And it's so powerful. And you talk so much about these 5 core values. Can you share what they are and how you found yourself grounding yourself in these values?
Absolutely. I'm going to take us back about 20 years, or maybe even more, for that matter. I was in grade 11 or grade 12, and this is the time where in India, resources were not as easily available as they are today. And I was so growing up in India. And I went to a shop with a few friends of mine at school. And we were trying to buy these t-shirts that had like slogans on them or some graphics written on them. And they were like the cool thing at that time because not everyone was wearing them. And so there were plenty of quotes out there, some beautiful rock songs of the world. But the one that kind of really got my attention, Tyler, in that moment was it was in Hindi written on that, called Main Kaun Hoon. And what that translates to, who am I? And I bought that T-shirt, and I wore that T-shirt for about, I think, 8 or 10 years, because I love the cloth and everything about that. And that question kind of has helped me hone through these values and take these leaps in my career. The 5 values that I've over a period of time kind of reached to, Tyler, are: the first one is discipline. That whatever you have to do in life, this meeting that we had to have, it's 2 o'clock my time, 10 o'clock your time on the previous day, but we both came here right on time. So that discipline is very important to whatever you're trying to do. The second one is excellence. That in this moment, let me be my best to you and to the audience. Because if I'm not doing that, then what the hell am I doing? Like it's an underservice to the people who will be tuning in and spending about 45 minutes of their precious human life. So excellence becomes an important one. The third one is growth. That through all these experiences in life, growth is something that's very innate to us. A child, and I have two boys who are now 13 and 10, but when they were born, there was not a single moment, Tyler, when I told them like, don't learn to walk. Why do you have to learn to walk? It's such a difficult thing to do. They fell again and again. They fell again and again. They bumped their heads around the house, but never did I tell them not to learn to walk. And so growth is an innate thing for all of us, and so that's one of my values. The fourth one is freedom. As soon as someone's trying to constrain me, or someone's trying to put me in a box, that's when I start to kind of feel uncomfortable, and I try and find my freedom. And the fifth and last one is love. That this moment with Tyler, a lot of love here, because that's what's important. A lot of love for the listeners who are again spending their time. As I go back into my life, after this call, I have to pick my younger one up from school. A lot of love right there. So these are the five values, Tyler, and they kind of form the bedrocks of my existence.
Thank you so much for sharing. Wow, I am sitting here thinking, oh, wow, yes, okay, you are still in school because we are off for our summer. Thank goodness, but we're totally flipped. The big burning question here is this shirt for 8 years. Did you wear it 8 years straight, or was there a time where it was getting washed?
It was getting washed every now and then. And the last time I wore, I can find a picture somewhere, but the last time I wore it was there's this festival in India which you played with a lot of colors, so it's called Holi, and that was the last time I remember wearing it, where it was all in drenched in different colors, and after that I did not. But yeah, it got washed multiple times through that 8-year period.
There you go. Your five values are so powerful, and they're rooted in very holistic things that can be applied to almost any situation. You gave the example of love and being here, love and picking up your kid. All of your values, they can be applied to any situation, and that's why they're so important and so powerful. They're not too specific, but they're specific enough to guide you through everything that you do. Now, before I jump into the next question, finding these was probably a bit of a journey for you. So, what step would you recommend for somebody that's trying to find what their values are?
Yeah. The first thing that I often do with my coaches and in my work, Tyler, is that I ask people to write an essay like you would write for like getting into a grad school or something like that. And write an essay about who are you. So for you, Tyler, who is Tyler? And what you're not allowed to write in there is what are your relationships? We don't care about them. If you're married, if you have kids, if you have parents, siblings living, don't worry about them. Let them be. The second thing you cannot do is what you do for work. This podcast, that's not your identity. So don't think about the podcast, don't think about the professional work, none of it. And the final thing, your education, because sometimes we feel like if you're from MIT or Harvard, you feel like that is part of my identity. Let go of that identity. And when you let go of all these three things, your education, your profession, your relationships, then what's left? What are some dreams that are innate to you? What are some elements, Tyler, that are innate to you? And when you start to think about them, start to write, it's a very uncomfortable journey, but when you start to do that, that's when you try and realize as to who you are at the core of your existence, at the core of your being. So that to me will be the first step that I'd recommend people to do and write, and do that over a period of time. So when the first time my mentor told me to do this, I used to do that every quarter. So every 3 months, I'll go back to that document and I'll revise it, I'll rewrite it, and I'll see how it's evolving over time. And then as you start to do this over and over again, there comes a point in your life where this becomes that I've got the best version of this document out there now. And then all I got to do is now live that best version into the world as well. So that's the first and the biggest step that I'd recommend. And I'll pause probably now so that you have any counter questions. We can go through that because I want to make it really value driving for our audience today.
I love that. That is such a good piece of advice for the listeners. And even for myself, I'm going to go back and write myself my little essay here and see where if I'm still aligned to my own values. Now, we've written this essay. We found a couple things that we think could be values. And I love that we're stripping it to the bare bones and we're taking away the external and we're focusing on everything internal with us. Yeah. I summarize that as your work is external. Your passion is external. Those other things, they're all external.
Correct.
Your elements are within you. Your earth is within you. You need to find your core. You need to find your root. So we found it.
Yeah.
How do we continue to work on it to stay true to our value while we're moving forward with the decisions we have to make?
Beautiful. So once you have that to the bare bone, and you've got it down to the elements, the next step, Tyler, would be to start to figure out like what my values are. And at this moment, I'd also recommend people, if you're in the US, Canada, Australia, anywhere in the world, just this journal is something that I've built for us to find that journey. It has all the exercise, everything I make people do, everything in there. So the next thing that I would recommend people to do is to almost create like a circle on a page, like you would build a thin crust New York style pizza and cut that into 8 slices. So now what you have in front of you are these 8 opportunities. Now sit down with yourself and think of, what are some values that I want to live my life by. And these could be things like honesty, or the 5 that I shared, or this could be inclusivity, or this could be adventure, or this could be anything that comes to your mind. Think of your 8 values. And in this moment, just don't think that, oh, because I've been living like this, so I should continue on that path, but make it more aspirational. That in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, in the next 30 years of my life, if I were to live by these 8 values, I'll be proud of my life. I don't know what happens on the outside, but I'll be really proud and joyful as to what I was able to do. Once you have those 8, then there's a secret thing that you need to do, which should be clear because I shared my 5 values. Because what you'll have to do next is that out of those 8, once you're getting attached to those 8 values, it's time for you to eliminate 3 out of those. And then you're left with 5. Now take those 5 values, put them on a beautiful post it note. I have one right on my table. I love post it notes. So take it on a post it note and then stick this post it note with the 5 values on it on a mirror. And I'm hoping that you like brush your teeth every day, so use your mirror in your bathroom, and stick it onto the mirror. Every morning when you wake up, you go and see your values. You don't have to like cram them. You don't have to like, oh, today I have to do 1, 2, and 3 and 4. No, don't do that. Just let them be with you, and then start to monitor how you're living your life by values. And that's what the journey is, Tyler. And there's no secret sauce to it. You just have to go out there and practice those values day in and day out.
And I'm sorry, but if you feel like you have to say check 1, check 2, check 3, check 4, those are not your values. That's your checklist.
I agree.
And you're wasting your time.
I agree.
So from your own perspective,
Mm.
with your values, you transitioned careers from physiotherapist to entrepreneur to coach and facilitator to author. And by the way, we will link all of your work in the description of this episode. So we'll make sure that our listeners can get a hold of those copies whenever they want to. How did your values guide you down that journey?
Yeah. So I'll give a very kind of practical, on the ground kind of an example, Tyler, because that really helps. So I was in a full time corporate role between 2013 to 2020, which is when I was building the content for the Columbia Business School professor. I was doing sales and operations for them, and it was a very well paying, beautiful, purposeful job. I'd seen the team grow from I was the second or the third member, and then I'd seen the team grow to about 50 globally, and we were doing cutting edge work. And I still, if I like think about that organization, I could go back there any day and go back to that work because I really enjoyed that work. But because of certain reasons, as the pandemic came, I started to realize that I have larger dreams for life, and being in that job will not serve me as to how I want to live. And so I decided to quit my job middle of the pandemic. Now 31st December 2020 was my last day at work. Now, January 1, 2021, that's the first morning that I'm now working for myself. I have no job, I have no clients, I have nothing to do. I don't even have an email address that I have to look at. But still, because discipline was an innate value, the next morning, January 1, I woke up on time, went to the gym, did all that I would do in a normal routine day. I then got into my took my bath and got into like proper clothes to sit, not in my pajamas, got into my proper work clothes, and then I'm sitting on the desk trying to figure out what do I want to do. And that's what discipline is. That you show up not because that, oh, I'm not motivated today to work. Let me look at Netflix and see a few series and let me enjoy. And there's nothing wrong with that. But my purpose did not serve me well if I were to go and look at the series on Netflix. So my discipline prompted me that This is the first day, Utkarsh, but you got to show up. And so just show up and show up and show up again and again. And all the opportunities that have come after that moment, Tyler, have been because of the certain level of discipline that I have in my pursuits. I post on LinkedIn twice a day. I have done YouTube gig where I have about 2,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. But it's all discipline that you show up and you don't wait for that, just the external validation, but that discipline shows up and guides the way for you. So that's just one example of how I put my values into practice, and that allowed me to pave the path for myself.
I love that. But Utkarsh, along the way, you're going to have adversity. Now, I bet you day one, there's excitement and there's love, and putting on those business clothes on day one is probably easier than say day 30.
Yeah.
If there's no progress at day 30 and you've done the same things, that day gets harder.
Yeah.
So now we shift into the air element, which is when we're facing that adversity. How did you adapt and navigate that so smoothly?
Yeah. I don't think there's anything that happens smoothly. I'll be very honest, because I can make it sound that, oh, I had it all figured out when I had to move from physiotherapy to this and to that, but it's never figured out. You just have to show up with a lot of intensity to make that happen. But I think a couple of ideas that I can share that will be valuable for the audience. One is that you have to really ground yourself as to why are you on the path that you are on. If you're doing a 9 to 5 job, that's amazing. If it serves you well, go do it for the rest of your life, and don't let anyone tell you that that's not the right path. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a content creator, if you're a musician, do whatever gives joy to you, and make sure that you understand as to why are you doing what you're doing. And to me, that why has been very clear over the years, Tyler, that I know that I'm on this pursuit of touching a billion lives positively. It might take whole of my life, and I might not end up reaching anywhere near to a million or a billion or anywhere. But whoever I touch life of, they should go out feeling better. They should go out feeling a little bit more in control and courageous for the life that they're living. So that why keeps guiding me. So that's one. The second is there was this moment in 2021, and very clearly remember that, where it was like there was nothing left. It seemed like no clients were saying yes, no business was happening. It seemed my savings were kind of draining out, and seemed like I'm at the dead end. That this is a time where you got to kind of stop doing what you're doing, go back, take a job, because that's what you've got to do. You've got to pay the bills and this and that. In that moment, my coach, who I was working with, they helped me figure out an affirmation for myself, and it's still right here in front of me on the wall, which says, "If not me, then who? And if not now, then when?" And then you keep repeating that to yourself, keep repeating that to yourself. So that's the second path. And then third and the final thing that I can offer, Tyler, is that make sure that whenever you're taking any steps in life, you find learning and growth in those failures as well, because you cannot control really the outcome of what's going to happen. I mean, I can send the best email out that's possible, but will a deal come out of it? I don't know. I can create the best content on LinkedIn and hope that it touches a million views every single day, but will that happen? I don't know. But what's in my control is that I learn through the process. I learn of the content and the quality that I'm producing for the world, and I make sure that I get that to be better each day. So I think these three things have helped me, and hopefully they'll push our audience as well.
And something that is so powerful about that, I've had this conversation with a few people in earlier episodes that have come out. The people that you touch in your lifetime are going to influence people in their lifetime and are going to influence people in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And even if you don't get to the million in your lifetime, you will get to it from the amount of people that you've influenced, who then pass on your influence through the generations. And so it's always there. It's always persistent. And the second thing I love about what you're sharing is you are doing all of my work for me. This could be your show. You could be the elemental educator. Well, we are all elemental educators, but you are rooting it back to your earth. And that is how you're navigating your adversity. You're bringing it back to the values. And that's what we need to do, because when you're rooted in that earth and you know your earth, it makes the adversity easier to overcome. You're leading with love. You're leading with discipline.
Wow.
That is so crucial for moving forward. Now, something else, though, that you work on is I want to bring in the mindfulness that you play into. And this helps you stay centered during times of change. So, can you speak a little bit to your acts of mindfulness to make sure you're staying rooted through this adversity?
Absolutely. And as you're saying that, I think you're absolutely right, Tyler. We are all elementals, and all in our kind of, when we reach those core elements, we have infinite power within us. So I absolutely agree with that. Mindfulness to me, like a very long time ago, I saw this image where it said either your mind can be full, which is mind and full, so it's all like mushed up everything, or you can be mindful, which is mindful. You can choose what kind of mindful you want to be. And I think that's where a practice of meditation has really helped me keep kind of myself grounded. And initially I struggled with that practice, because we all know that meditation is good for you, you should do it once a day, all of us know that. But to actually put it into practice again becomes very hard. And so I've had years of trying to get meditation into a place where I would not stop, and I would go to it every single day. And it took a while to get there. Now I can say that I have a practice of meditation where I can be meditating 15 minutes every single day. And I think this morning on Headspace I completed my 432nd day streak. So that helps. But again, to build that discipline, again grounding it back to the values, discipline came up. How do you create that discipline? The other thing that you can do is to create like a physical space for yourself, that as soon as I wake up, my brain now knows that there's a physical spot in my house where I have to go and sit and meditate. So that I think becomes really important. The other thing is that our emotions cloud our judgment so many different times, and they don't allow us to be who we really want to be, which could be our best self. And so the only way you can control your emotions is to slow yourself down, to focus on your breath, and make sure that you're mindfully present in each moment. So that's how mindfulness has played a tremendous role in my journey, Tyler.
And what we're starting to do in that response is segue from the adversity of air
Mhm.
to we're now taking some action and implementing change with water. And we're hoping to do it in a smooth and fluid manner. Now, with that, you talk a bit about using fear to drive you towards taking some courage, taking some risk, to making those changes. How do you help individuals and teams implement these changes fluidly while still managing that fear and uncertainty?
Yeah. As you speak about water, Tyler, just a few weeks ago, I took a small vacation, and we went to the Great Barrier Reef. And it was a surreal experience, because you had read about the coral reefs and you'd read about the turtles being there and the fishes, but to actually witness that and to be in that water snorkeling, it was my first time snorkeling. It was quite an amazing experience. But it also tells us the power of water, because the fluidity and the force with which water presents itself is something that we all have within ourselves again. And so what I really help people understand, Tyler, is that, see, we'll always be fearful about things. We'll always feel like, what if everything goes wrong? What if I publish a book and no one reads it? What if I come onto this podcast and no one wants to listen to me? What if I reach? And yes, that can go wrong. Yes, everything can go wrong. But what's stopping you from looking at what can go right? Because until unless you act upon it, nothing's going to change. So at least act with the non-attachment to the outcome again. And that's something that I've really witnessed in my life. And that's really something, because I speak with it from like the heart and the passion. It helps people also move the journey through that process. The other thing is that I recently gave a TEDx talk, Tyler, which was here in Mornington. It's a place in Melbourne. And what I spoke about there in totality was that, we feel that we're all very courageous, or we need courage in life. But at the root of that courage is a lot of fear. And it is us who have to understand how we leverage that fear to then go out and be courageous. For example, when I'm coaching a lot of people, I hear them say that, Utkarsh, I cannot speak to my manager. And I ask, like, why? What stops you? And they think about different reasons. They tell about, like, what if my manager does not understand me and this and that. And then I keep questioning them. Do you really think that's the reason? What else is happening? And there was this one person who is in the US, and I was coaching them, and they work at one of the biggest tech firms in the world. And they said, Utkarsh, I'm fearful because when I was 8 years old, my mom used to tell me that you did not come first in class. What the hell are you doing? And just that fear of that moment in my life now I'm 30 years old is still being carried. And I think it's stories like these that remind me again and again, Tyler, that we're too complex, all of us human beings. And so it's important for us to really witness the fears that we're operating with and see how we can transform that into courage and keep moving forward. So I do that work for individuals, for teams, and for organizations.
Now, Utkarsh, this sounds so good when you say how this is all we have to do. Can I have you break it down into the first step somebody needs to take when they're looking at something with a fearful mind? They've recognized that they're fear driven. What's the first step that they need to do to transition that?
Yeah. So how I think, and I'm just kind of pulling back on my chair right now. How I think about is this is I'm a funambulist, and what that means, Tyler, is that you and we're all tightrope walkers, and this tightrope that we're walking, that's the tightrope of life. And so the first thing that we need to understand is that whenever a fear presents us, or whenever we feel like challenged by life's journey, the first thing that we need to understand is that the choice to act, the choice to be who we want to be, is completely ours. And no one can take that choice away. And so, as you zoom out from that really emotional space, as you zoom out, then you're able to take decisions that are more logical. The second thing is that, you know, growing up in India, I have parents who were both doctors. And so it was always told to me, Utkarsh, you got to become a doctor when you grow up. And I did do that, not because I was compelled to do that, but I was committed to becoming a doctor. But at certain stage, I did not want to be a doctor anymore. And now, as I go to my parents and tell them that I've decided to not be a doctor, it was heartbreaking for them because that's what they had kind of supported me too. And that's what I'd reached. But then you got to believe that as the author of your life story, you have a plan that might work and that's more effective. So that to me becomes the second big step, Tyler, that people can think of that we have control. And third and final thing, Tyler, is that the future is really not in our control. The future is going to come and then it's going to change. And we spoke about the lottery numbers, right? So today's Powerball, the first number is going to be 79. And now people can question me when they watch this that Utkarsh, it did not become 79. But that's the whole point. When the future arrives into the present, it can be very different. And so rather than being fearful of that future, what's stopping us from being courageous? Does that resonate and make sense, Tyler, as we speak about this?
Of course. And I think we're just going to roll this episode every week until that Powerball is 79.
Big.
And then we'll come back and say that future was right. No, we are talking about something super powerful here, which is human behavior and organizational dynamics that impact human behavior. How do you help people understand that their response is actually normal? Because a lot of the time, people say, why? Why am I beating myself up over this? Why am I afraid of that?
Mhm.
That's a very normal response.
Mm.
How do you navigate that through your coaching?
Yeah. I think the best way to do that, at least when you're in a group setting, Tyler, is by allowing stories to be shared amongst each other. Because, we're all, and one of my mentors said this to me, Utkarsh, we're all in the same storm, but in very different boats. And so the boat that Tyler is on is different from Utkarsh. And I'm not going to judge Tyler's boat, but I'm also not going to judge my own boat. And I think as you hear more stories, the purpose of this podcast, Tyler, getting those elements out there, people who listen to this, they'll get to learn these stories. They'll get to understand that, oh, this guy, he went through the same challenge. This woman, she had the same challenges. We all go through the imposter syndrome. We all have the self doubt. We all have low self confidence, but we also have high self confidence. We also have moments where our best came out in the world, and we got to try and focus consciously towards that best. And we are all on this path trying to figure out life, trying to figure out our challenges and this and that, hoping for something big in the future. But that's the whole point. There's no carrot at the end of the stick. It is what you do today, it is what you find today that's going to bring you joy. And that's what's kind of allowed me to have the career that I had, to take the choices that I did. And that's, I think, the superpower that I want the world to also develop, where they can live these courageous lives, because who the hell is going to stop us?
And you're hitting it out of the park here. The whole purpose of what we're doing here is to show people that different paths are okay. You can attain the same dream, the same outcome in so many different ways. And establishing this network of transparent connections and storytelling and hearing the lived experiences of how everybody's navigated each of these elements in their own path. It's so powerful to reaffirm people. There's no set in stone path that you have to follow.
Yeah.
It's not standardized for you. Now, I want to jump back to your TED Talk a little bit. For me, it really focused on using that fear to drive courage. That's the message I really pulled from it.
Yeah.
Now, can you share an example of when you faced fear and how that drove you to courageous decisions?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As you asked that question, it's a question that touches a lot of emotional chords within me, because there have been phases where fear gripped me and gripped our family in more than one way. So it was a couple of years ago, Tyler. We were during the second wave of the COVID pandemic, which is when we got to, as a family. So my wife and I, our two kids, we got to be in the US for a couple of years, for 3 months. And so those 3 months, my sister lives there. They were really like, we had a joyful time. And all this while we were thinking, like, what would it take for us to really take a leap from being in India as a family to moving to another country? And when you're a single person, or when you are in a relationship, it's much easier. But when you have a family, then moving countries becomes a massive challenge. And so we were presented with the same challenge, because we have now, this dream has come to us that we want to change countries, but how do you pursue that path? And so we came back to India. Life took its turns, and we were now back to being comfortable as to how we were. But there was a point where my wife, who's an occupational therapist, and so she deals with kids and families with special needs, and she had a clinic in Delhi, India, and really thriving practice. It was going really well, but through that practice, there was a lot of emotional and physical strain on her body. And as she was going through the mental and the physical challenges, we as a family were feeling drained because of it, because one person not being fully present to you led to a lot of challenges. And kudos to her for taking the right steps. But there was this enormous fear that the doctors had no idea as to what was happening to her. She was unable to sleep well. There was a lot of physical pain that she was going through, and the doctors had no idea how to treat her. And there came a point where we started to fear, like, will we as a family lose our identity? How do we raise our children, who now about 12 and 9 years? And that was a very fearful moment, because you feel that the tunnel is never going to end. You feel that you've been surrounded by this darkness, and the fire is never going to come back on again, going back to those elements. And in that moment, through her pursuits and through her endeavors, she managed to find herself a job in Melbourne, Australia. And it was 15 months ago that, out of that fear of losing someone I truly loved, of losing our relationship in a way, that she and I decided that we were ready for this leap, where we sold our home, sold our car, sold everything that we possessed after 15 years of being together in India. And we took this leap and came to this unknown land. Now we would come to this land, and things could have gone south, and things could have been really more troublesome, and we would not have our family, we would not have our friends, and how would we manage? But until unless we would have taken that leap, how would we have known? And since the moment she's been here, she's physically very well recovered now. Great work life balance. Australia is a beautiful country. We enjoy our time together, our hikes together. She cooks every day, a great Indian food, so I can't complain about food not being there. So we took that leap because of the fear, but we became courageous through that process. And just because we took that chance, maybe that's why we have a better life than what we had 15 months ago.
And listening to this story, Utkarsh, all I can think about is your value of discipline is so important to you. The root of this is hard. Being and having a family and doing the things you're doing, you need to be disciplined in what you're doing. And you mentioned it yourself, creating that balance in your life.
Yeah.
Now, there is a difference between what we would call discipline and motivation.
Mm.
So why is discipline more important than motivation?
Yeah, love that. That's the first few pages of the journal, by the way, Tyler, because you become motivated during the first week of January, where 2024 has started. I'm gonna make some like big goals for myself, and I'll make these resolutions, and I'm gonna change my life this year. Few weeks later, couple of months later, by February, you've forgotten about all those resolutions. Now the motivation was really high during the first week of January, and you built all these things for you, but you did not follow up with all of that. And that's why motivation can only be like big sparks, big sparks, big sparks. But discipline is what keeps you going. Discipline is what keeps you going. And discipline means that I'm going to show up whatever happens. It's not that, oh, this morning it's too cold, so I'm not going to go to the gym. This morning, this is happening, so I'm not going to do it. This morning, because I'm speaking to Tyler, let me not do anything else today because that's the big thing. Not at all. This is all part of the process, and discipline keeps you showing up, helps you build the right habits, stack them right in the right order, and that's when change happens. See, no one became fit by going to the gym like once a day. You have to go there every single day for the rest of your life. If you stop for 6 months, eat some amazing french fries and fried chicken, within a few months you'll have a big belly and have some beers, and you can die in the next 1 year, and hope that does not happen to anyone. But discipline is something that you need throughout your life. It is something that keeps you going even when you don't want to go, even when things are like not in the right direction, and keeps you on the path of actually achieving what you're trying to achieve in life.
And the nice thing about what you're sharing is earth, air, water, these are internal elements, where your fire element, your risks, your decisions, your drive, that can be an external spark.
Yeah.
And that can lead to motivation. But it's very important to distinguish that motivation is not your earth.
Not
What motivates you is your earth. That can be what drives you, but motivation itself is your fire element.
Yeah.
Now, discipline might not be everyone's core value, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
What would you deem to be the most essential of your 5 values
Hmm.
that people should strongly consider rooting themselves in?
That's such a tough question. It's like asking Utkarsh, you have two boys who are 13 and 10, which one do you love more? Because
It's kind of like asking, hey, you had 8, you went to 5. Let's take 5 and go to 1.
yeah, that's I'm just thinking through that. I think it boils down to love, Tyler, because if I'll have love for myself, which is where it should start, then I'll go ahead and be disciplined and take care of my body and take care of my mind and work and so on and so forth. If I have love, then freedom will be important. So to me, I think it boils down to love, and that's one value that I really feel is very precious. But I'm not going to say that folks listening to this should try and see if they can pick love as a value. They should not, because these are my 5 values. They work for me, but they might not work for you. And so make sure that you do the inner work to find out what your elements are, Tyler. Because ultimately, yes, we have the fire and the earth, but earth for everyone will look very different. Fire, if in a controlled way, can help you cook a meal, but fire uncontrolled can spread like wildfire. So make sure that you do the inner work to be ready to be receiving these values to yourself. Because if you're not ready, if your vessel is not ready for the 5 values, then just putting love into it in infinite amounts will not really help, and it might be detrimental. So do your inner work is what I'm gonna close with.
Absolutely. I think love is essential. I think everybody needs it. I think you need to be doing things that you love doing, but you shouldn't be driving every decision you make off of the sole value of love.
Mm.
Because, like you just alluded to, it can lead to bad decisions. Leading with, it's a term people say all the time. Oh, I led with my heart,
Mm.
or oh, I led with my brain, right? You need to make sure that you have other values impacting love that help you stay aligned, that help you be disciplined, just like your strong value as well. Well, Kash, I'm wondering, what are you hoping that people action in their lives tomorrow from your message?
Here's a 2% rule, Tyler. And if they can do just one thing, that's all they should do. I ask this often to people, Tyler. What is 2% of 24 hours? And I know the math is complex, but I'm going to calculate that for you. It's about 28 minutes. So if you can start to spend 2% of your life's time, of your day's time, into reflecting and really having a deeper conversation, a meaningful conversation with yourself, I think that one change can have ripple effects on your existence. Because we are so busy in these times where we have our phone and we have our Netflix and we have our laptop and we have our meetings and we have this and that, that we don't even have time to connect with our own selves. And so, if you can start with that 2% rule, that each day out of the 24 hours that I have, I'm going to spend 28 minutes with myself. There'll be no technology, there'll be no distractions, there'll be no spouses, girlfriends, brothers, sisters, kids, nothing. Just you, yourself, and a conversation with yourself. And don't use those 20 minutes, 28 minutes to, oh, I'm going to go for a run or I'm going to be at the gym, because you'll still be focused on something completely different. So just start to spend those 28 minutes with yourself, and I'm pretty sure that it'll have ripple effects on how you're living your life and how intentionally beautiful can you create it by expressing all the elements that you have within you.
You need to love yourself.
That's
That
it.
is very important. Now, this sounds like another book that could be coming out. So I want to know, what does your future look like, Utkarsh?
The future is a man-made concept, Tyler.
Well, you're in my future right now, so I'm ready to hear what are you planning for? What excites you
Yeah, yeah.
moving forward?
I think the big thing that I'm currently working on is I want to create this massive community of people who are ready to just unconditionally support each other. And I know it sounds like, because that's been done, can be done better, but I know there's still more potential. And when minds like you and I, Tyler, come together, and the community comes together, there's always more joy in the collective. There's more power in the collective. So I think I'm almost witnessing, and I don't know if you've watched this, but as I was growing up, there was this cartoon series that used to come on our television called Captain Planet. And there the five characters had these five rings onto them, which had the five elements, right? Earth, fire, water, air, and heart. And those would merge together to form this one entity, Captain Planet, who was like unbeatable. I'm just thinking like it's time for us to build something like that that's so powerfully driven by heart, and that's where my attention right now is. So that's one of the big things. And then moving to this new land here in Australia, I'm building my business here, and that's something that's top of mind. And the third thing is seeing our kids grow up. That too, my wife and I, is very important. The elder one just got into his teenage, and so it's a very new challenge that we're going through right now.
And it's going to be a challenge for the rest of your life. I'm sitting here with my 2-year-old and one on the way here thinking, I am not knowing what I'm getting into, but boy, am I excited for it. Captain Planet has been referenced so many times for this show. I love it. At least they have a great message and it comes from the same place. And there's something about that fifth element, that heart, that's super important to bring into and talk about, as well as you share with your value of love. Very similar, very related.
Yeah.
Now, what advice, and this is a tricky one, what advice would you give to anybody that is listening that is struggling to make that first step, struggling with that adversity?
Yeah. Find yourself a coach. And I cannot tell you enough how meaningful it can be. It seems like an investment, that why do I need someone to get help from or get support from? But if you can, find yourself a coach. I do this as for a living, so I'm going to be someone who's positively influencing you to get a coach. But through my journey, I have had coaches who've really supported me on that path, and so I think it's really important. The other thing is why I say that you need a coach is, you look at someone uh, like the LA Lakers, right? Or Michael Jordan when he was at in his top form, or Novak Djokovic, or Roger Federer if you follow tennis. All of these people who are at the top of their game, they still have a coach on their side. They still have a coach who supports them through the process. It's not necessary that the coach has to be a better player than you, but the coach will create the conditions where the best in you is going to emerge out. And so I think if you can do this minimum investment in yourself, then get yourself a coach and they'll help you. And find your coach anywhere. They could be in Australia, they could be in the US, they could be in Europe, they could be in Antarctica, wherever it works for you. But find yourself a coach, because they'll create that space where you'll be able to express these elements more with more fluidity, and that's going to change your life, and I promise that.
Speaking of finding a coach, Utkarsh, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So LinkedIn is one place where I'm really active. So if you just search my name, and I'm pretty sure Tyler is going to put all the links there. But yeah, come to me on LinkedIn, connect with me, and then the journal is available on Amazon in the US. We are getting a lot of traction in the US because of the podcast. So just go and find Ignite Life Journal. That's a great place to start. And then yeah, all on all the social medias. I'm on Instagram and on yeah, LinkedIn. And so reach out, and I'll be happy to connect and offer myself in any way with all my heart.
Well, alchemists, you heard it here first from the future with Utkarsh. Utkarsh, thank you so much for joining this show. It's been such a pleasure to have you.
Same here, Tyler. Thank you for having me here, and thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and love this concept of the 5 elements. I think you're something powerful, and yeah, it's just beautiful for the listeners to be tuning into to this show.
You've been listening to The Elemental Educator. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Elemental Educator.